What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, it's a good day because we're checking in on one of my favorite games of all time. The developers over at Blue Bottle have made just an absolutely incredible sci-fi RPG called Ostranauts. We've been covering it for a couple years now whenever they release major content updates. And well, it's been about a year and a half or so I figured it was about time for us to dive back on in and show off some new features. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. If after watching this, you wanted to get Ostranauts for yourself, I really like this game as long as you've got a good tolerance for bugs as a result of the game running one of the more complex simulations that's out there in terms of atmosphere and pressure and G-forces and stuff like that. If you've got a tolerance for weird little bugs in the simulation, I think you'll be alright, and you'll find that this is a really fun game about breaking ships out in the void. But that link is down below. On top of that, you can find a bunch of other Nerd Castle links. I figured today we'll just play for however long it takes. I'll give you kind of a guided tour to things that they've added to the game and things that are going on with its development and things to look forward to. This is one of the very rare games that actually follow every single update on Steam, like reading what they're working on and whatnot, because I simply cannot wait for this game to be done. But let's dive on into the game, let's have a good time with it, and hopefully by the end you'll be able to decide whether or not this is a game that deserves a spot in your Steam library. Alright, so welcome aboard the Oolong Steel. This is the ship that I've been working on. I sat down to actually start making a video on this game about a week and a half ago, and I've probably played for about 50, 60 hours since then. It's one of those games that just tremendously sucks me in, but as previously mentioned, Ostranauts is a game where you are an indentured servant that's kind of been banished to the far fringes of the solar system to break down ships in order to pay off your debt, and ultimately make something of yourself once you free yourself from that indentured servitude. The Oolong Steel is my vessel, of which I am the captain, and you can see it right here. It's actually quite large and sophisticated at this point. And the cool thing about this game is that every single tile, wall, every single light, every single wire, thruster, every single air pump, I mean every single bed, every object inside this ship, I actually found, scavenged, and then incorporated in, slowly making my ship larger and larger and larger until I could accomplish all the things that I wanted to accomplish inside the solar system. A rough guided tour of what we've got going on here before we go out for some fun salvage missions. Over here, I've got like a generalized living area and piloting area. I haven't had a chance to actually like rearrange this area yet, but you've got treadmills, fridge, toilet. That's right, my toilet is right next door to the fridge. Listen, man, this is space. Ask any astronomer or ask anybody that works in mathematics that has to do with aeronautics, and you will find that math matters. Efficiency matters. Being able to eat, then poop right after each other, it saves time, and in space, saving time can save your life, alright? Down here is where I sleep at. I've got my own little arcade machine rocking along, sink, I've got water tanks, all kinds of stuff. But this is where the fun and the new content begins down here. So this is my fusion reactor. This is actually one of the new additions to the game since the last time that I played, and this guy right here is what's going to allow us to do long-range flights that extend out to astronomical units. You can actually hard burn with your torch drive now utilizing this reactor in order to like fly, say, to Mars or to Venus, and there will be stuff over there, like there's stations, there's new salvage yards and stuff like that that you can play around with. These over here are my fuel tanks for this giant assembly. That's my battery bank right there, although I could probably slim that down now that I have a nuclear reactor. This is pre-existing from before I got a nuclear reactor. This thing right now is generating all the power for my ship, and I used to have to buy energy from the station, load it into my batteries, and that would determine like how long I could be out scavenging, but now I can be out like infinitely, and I just haven't taken down the battery array yet. Over here is like my storage area where I pick up all my salvage and my scrap so that I can bring it back and earn money. These right here are fuel tanks. We've got like helium-3, we've got like deuterium heavy water, we've actually got like nitrous inside of a cryo reservoir on this side to help keep the reactor cooled. Down here we've got fuel intakes that are allowing fuel to flow down to the thrusters, different rates and whatnot, setting up the amount of like distance that I can travel inside short hops. But really the point of this game is breaking down ships that you find out in the boneyard. So how about we go do that first, and you can see what the core gameplay loop looks like, and once you understand the core gameplay loop, we can talk about like the more complex stuff that happens inside the game. So for now, we're just gonna go to our nav station. I don't know if I'm fully fueled up right now. I am fully fueled up, and while this menu right here is gonna look very complicated, don't stress about it too much. We just need to make a request right now. to K-Leg to ask if we can... That's not where I want to be. Let's go back. We want to go over to K-Leg, and we need to talk to the Port Authority to make sure that we have docking clearance. So I'll acquire that right now. We will undock, and everything in this game is kind of like trying to be as scientifically accurate as possible. So right now, what you're seeing inside this little menu, this is the umbilicus of our ship, or the airlock of our ship that is now connected to K-Leg Station, where I'm currently docked. We're going to want to hit the clamps, and badunk. You're going to see us pop on off the clamps, and then if I give us a little bit of backwards thrust, you can see our V relational right now to the station is about 70 meters per second. And now that we've gotten ourselves unhitched from the station, normally what I like to do here is I like to just accelerate backwards and then turn the ship around. That way I can like work the area that I undocked from without burning extra RCS fuel, which you can see on this reading right here. I've got like 6,000 kilograms of fuel, so I should last a while. But I haven't really been working this area of the boneyard lately, and so I might head down there just to see what we find. It's going to require a little bit of maneuvers, but it'll be okay. So let's go ahead and we'll accelerate on out. When you're inside this right here, everything just controls with WASD, so don't think about it too hard. You will have to learn how to reverse your controls. That guy right there is a hauler. He's bringing in a new wreck, so the game actually replenishes wrecks now. It used to be the case back in the early days of this game that you could actually salvage every single wreck, and then there would be no wrecks left for you to salvage. I've done it, actually, but now there's haulers that they take out the ones that have already been salvaged, and then they bring in new ones, just like you would in real life. Like, these ships can be anything from things that were impounded by the police. These are just derelicts that were floating too close to planetary installations and whatnot and abandoned. The storylines behind some of these ships you can find on PDAs and whatnot that are in here, but let's go for this little wreck right here. And let's hope we get a good one, yeah? The game does use push pause. I highly recommend you use push pause aggressively while playing the game. I'm just going to adjust my heading here. Things to pay attention to from this little display over here on the right. This is all second nature to me, but for somebody that's new to the game, this can be very overwhelming and confusing. So basically, you got your V relational. That's how fast you're moving with relation to the target that you've selected inside your SysNav. Other than that, you've got your range. That's how far out you are from it. So we're 12 kilometers away right now, moving towards it at about 350 meters per second. Obviously, that's a pretty fast cook, but I'm pretty comfortable with piloting in this game. I can mostly do it blind when I need to while talking to somebody on comms, so like not really that big of a deal. We've also got our ETA right here, which is 35 seconds. I'm going to slow the game down, and we actually need to decelerate pretty aggressively. I'm going to take this down to 150 V relational, and then that leaves us with 41 seconds until we make contact with the derelict. Once we get inside 5,000 range right here, we can actually signal the ship to let it know that we're docking. It's a dead ship, so it's not actually going to respond to us when we do that, but then it'll bring up our handy-dandy old docking menu. I'm going to speed up the game ever so slightly because I don't want to sit here for 45 seconds waiting to get closer to the station. That should be good enough, and so really all we have to do is we have to line up our docking port with the center of that X right there, and we need to be under 100 meters per second for the clamps to actually take hold. Otherwise, you're going to take some damage to your airlock when you actually make contact with this craft. And we're good. The second you see the green lights, you hit the clamps button, and you should be all ready. So let's see what we've got here. Right now, my character is rocking an EVA suit. I've actually got a collection of them going because I like to be fashion forward, you know what I mean? Every single day, I might feel like salvaging in slightly different style, and so I've been holding on to all the different suits in different colors and the different helmets in different colors that I can find. In fact, that's actually sort of become my quest over the course of the last 20 hours or so, is to collect every suit. I don't know if the suits are any different from one another. I've done like some cursory testing of the 4 suits that I have. They all seem to be like kind of identical, but it would be cool if all of the suits kind of had different benefits. So like a green suit would give you slight protection versus G-forces when you're accelerating a torch drive. Like a red one would have a little bit of extra armor for fighting. You know, an orange one is like an engineering suit that's got better flexors in the hands and in the elbows so that you work ever so slightly slightly faster while salvaging things. I would like to see that sort of variation in between the pieces of gear in this game, but really the most important thing is I gotta put my spacesuit helmet on before we go out here to this derelict. Looks like a little guy, not very large, but it looks like they were towing a lot of stuff over here, so they've got lots of storage crates on this side. Do I have my lamp in my hand? Spoiler alert, space is kind of dark, and if you wanted to, you could actually uninstall all these crates, you can uninstall these walls, you can uninstall these wires, and you can haul them onto your ship and then install them on your ship to make it larger if you want to. I currently kind of want to expand this wall out right here and make it a little bit more bulbous near the top. That way, I don't know, I've got like, then I can stop using these as storage areas for things that I'm selling, and I can use them as storage areas for things for long haul trips while surviving and hauling cargo to different systems, or sorry, to different corners of the solar system, and then I could just use this for salvage storage up inside of here, maybe convert some of this over into more living space so that I can move all the workout equipment out, and then I can take the nav console, swap it to the center stage right here, maybe put some retaining walls around it, that in case we get like micrometeorites that penetrate the hull, they don't hit the nav station and knock it offline, because at that point you're basically floating dead without knowing it. But for now, let's start going through what we've got over here. So there's a backpack on the floor. The backpack, it looks like it's got some batteries inside of it with 100 charge. I will throw those in because my lamp needs them. And so we've also got a Holden patch over here. This is a hole patch. So basically it's kind of like paper mache that you throw over a hole that gets knocked in the hole. It's not gonna last very long, but you can try. From there, we want to start checking some of these side racks. There's an EVA battery right there, but I've got a ton of EVA batteries. There's a air pump right here. That'll bring in a couple $1,000. So let's get to work kind of taking that thing off the wall. My character basically has like maxed out like engineering stats at this point because I've played for so long. Your character does have a very, very large array of stats and sort of like moodles, I guess Project Zomboid style, that sort of define their mentality, how good they are at things, how skilled they are. I'll give you a look at that right here. So if you right click on your character, and then you go show more on that side, you can see everything that comprises who your character is. So on this list, I actually think this is kind of a messy list, and they should just make like a standardized tabletop character sheet. I think that would work a little bit better and be a lot less messy. But anyways, each one of these moodles represents something. So like from here upwards, or like from here upwards. These are all sim-style things that your character is experiencing, things that comprise their personality. So your self-worth, your altruism, your sense of achievement, your sense of meaning and privacy and security, how close you are with your family, how much you've been socializing lately, how much you've been getting laid. That's a thing that they just added this morning, is that now you can actually, I think, do dirty, dirty things in 0G with other characters inside the game in order to get that stat up. These things right here are all going to be kind of like physical and mental qualifiers about me. So because my character was born and raised inside microgravity, I'm feeble and I'm fragile. I'm working on removing those things right here. You can see training feeble at 5% right there. You can use workout equipment and supplemental drugs in order to like make yourself as strong as an Earther would be. But right now we're our character to get into fight with an Earther. Somebody that actually grew up inside of an actual healthy gravity level, they would kick our ass because we basically have like the strength of a child as it sits right now, the bone density of a child, and so you would have to like fix that. I also have micro G volemic, which came from an event when I was doing character creation. I'm an insomniac, so like my sleep meter down here, all of these are the bars that you have to maintain. You want them all to be as empty as possible at all times. I heal very, very slowly. And also I sleep very, very slowly just because of who I am. I'm also slovenly, which means that my grooming and my bodily health, so like how stinky I am, goes up like crazy whenever I do anything. But these down here are all the things that I'm good at. All these things in white, these are all things that I have meticulously trained up from 0 to 100%, where I basically have like a bachelor's degree in all of these things, including persuasion, although I haven't really been talking with too many characters lately. What else is inside this ship? It's kind of like a little micro ship just used for short hops. We do have an N2 tank over here, and it's got like 33,000 Well, it's got 300 kilograms of nitrogen inside of it. Probably not worth hauling off of here. They've got a destroyed thruster that's not really going to be that helpful unless we could fix it. This bulkhead bin is full of trash, so whatever took this ship out must have also wiped out the space inside the bin and turned it into trash. That's the end state of all items in this game, is that they turn into trash, but we do have a nav station over here. I'm going to run restoration on the nav station because this guy's worth like 10 grand, and so we'll fix that up. I love the sprite work in this game, just like the stages of degradation that all of the objects have. Just fantastic stuff, taking them from something that's busted to something that's fixed. We'll also uninstall that. You can fix broken items in this game, and in fact, I do recommend hauling around a cargo hold full of broken stuff because some ships are just littered with parts everywhere. We can't fix the thruster right now because we need scrap and carbon fiber, and our character is unaware of any scrap or carbon fiber that might exist around us right now. Move that window. Everything in this game is modular. You can click it and move it around. It's going to reset after you load your save, but like, if you're playing long stints like I do for like 4 and 5 hours at a time, you know, keeping things out of the way can be helpful. What I'm looking for right now is space drugs, actually. That's kind of where I'm at in my journey, is I'm getting ready to make long-haul flights out to Venus, and long-haul flights out to Venus can take upwards of like 10 days, depending on how fast your thrust vector is. Mine is not that fast, so it'd probably take a little bit longer, and so I'm trying to cut that time down. But while you are fast traveling, basically, across the solar system, I need drugs. So my character, because of his weak physique, unfortunately, he cannot handle G-forces, and so there's pens, there are injectors like that one right there, Gravicine. That's exactly what I'm looking for. These pens right here, you inject yourself with them, and then for 24 hours, the effects of gravity, the effects of G-forces will be limited on your character. I also need food for the journey, so I'm too cheap to buy it back at the station. And so what we're finding inside of here is basically like the space equivalent of Hot Pockets. They've got some 45 caliber APC ammo in here. Okay, ACP I think is probably what that means to say, hey, we've got more food. I'll take more food. I don't really need the water bags or anything because I've got water tanks and stuff on my ship, so it's not really going to be that big of a deal. But even though this wreck was kind of tiny and not that useful, finding a Gravicine is actually really good. That's kind of a rare thing that you don't find altogether that often. The stuff does exist on board to fix this fuel intake right here, so I will repair that real fast. You can see how damaged the object is over on this right-hand side. And right there, you can now see that it's got a sliver of green. That means I can restore it back to full health, and then we'll have a full-price object that we can sell when we get back to the station. Because after all, that is our job out here in space. Other things that I'm seeing with my eye right now, we do have an oxygen tank right here. Hold on, finish restoring that. This oxygen tank, it's mostly empty. It's only got 134 kilograms left inside of it. Not really packing that much, so like might be worth tearing out if it had a little bit more oxygen inside of it. Oxygen's pretty valuable inside space because it's in limited supply and has to be trucked in from other locations. So there's a lot of money in selling oxygen if you can find it out here, but this one's mostly empty. This right here is a cooler inside your ship. If I hit the G key, you can see the stats of the atmosphere inside of my ship. So the letters that are in blue, the dark blue, that's how much nitrogen is pressurizing the cabin. So we've got 75 kilopascals, and then underneath that with the green, we've got 20 kilopascals of oxygen inside of there, because the green is oxygen. Then the white is how much carbon dioxide is actually inside of our ship right now, which I actually got a carbon dioxide scrubber down here. It should be working okay. What is tagged for repair down here? Huh, I must have just left an old work order on top of it. If you want to, you can run this game entirely like RimWorld, and you can have multiple crew on your ship, and then you can automate them with the orders and the scheduling system. I don't do that because the feeling of being alone in space is a big part of the atmosphere and vibe of this game to me, where if there's like a problem, I need to fix it myself. But I do use automation from time to time to get larger scale jobs done, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now with all the stuff that we have inside the ship. Not very much of it, anyways, kind of a small ship that we rated here. I am going to haul some of this stuff back over to my ship and put it inside the cargo area, and then we'll go find ourselves another Hulk. And then once he gets done hauling stuff on board, he's just going to auto start repairing everything so that we get full price from it. And if you leave him on auto task, he'll actually fix everything on the ship iteratively. He'll step through and basically fix all the walls, fix all the wires and everything else, but we don't need to do that for right now. Let's go ahead and we will jump off this wreck and go to a new wreck because that one was underwhelming. Not a lot of great stuff on that wreck for us, although the grav pen is nice. All successfully unloaded, so it's time for us to undock here and see if we can find something else to do along the way. In terms of activities, there's actually, so this is kind of a self-motivating game. If you're the kind of player that needs prompts and the game to give you a storyline and stuff to do in order to advance further on into the game, you're going to struggle with this game because this is very much a self-motivating game where you've got to kind of like figure out what you want to do, what your values are, and what you want to work on inside the solar system. However, there are narratives and things inside the game right now. They tend to be presented in a very obfuscated way. So, like, I can't really tell you about them without spoiling part of it, which is, like, some of the storylines you're going to discover when you're on board Rex and whatnot, and then you can investigate those further, and it'll unlock kind of like this chain of events of things that you need to fix and take care of. But for right now, there are, like, things you can do out inside the galaxy. So you can investigate happenings, things that you find on a ship. So let's say that you find a dead body. You can open up an investigation on that dead body, and then from there, if you collect enough evidence, you can find people that are linked to that person, and then they will give you like tips on like a wreck that you can go to that might have like better than average loot to like close out the equation and figure out exactly what happened to that person. There are actual scripted narratives in the game too, although they can be a little bit difficult to stumble across or parse what you're supposed to be doing at any given time. You can find guides for them up on the Steam community page, I guess, just in case you get stuck on them. I guess this wreck right here looks good enough to me. It's kind of close. We're like, whoa, oh, I don't have it targeted. There we go. Oh, we're actually getting very, very close to this wreck. Okay, let's pop the brakes real quick and get down to a safer approach speed. Everything in this game does act in accordance to like physics. If I zoom out on the solar system here, everything in this game has like a gravity well that's acting upon things, and in fact, multiple gravity wells can interact on top of one another, which means that in some cases you may get really, really tricky docking challenges with some of these ships if they're being like pulled towards the asteroid that we're working around right now. Let me see how much further I can get this zoomed out so you can see the scale of the game now that we have torch drives. There we go. So there's our entire solar system right there. As you can see, there are orbiting bodies around Sol, and we can actually go to all of these orbiting bodies now. I don't know if anybody's actually made it out to Jupiter or whatever. I assume somebody has. But in general, most of the content at the moment is related to where we're at. There's also some content on Venus that you can go to. There's a number of stations that are on these orbits right here for like Mars and those kinds of places. And then there's another little place off to our right called the Flotilla, which is basically like a floating crime city that has stuff that you can do inside of it. To give you some idea of how long this game lasts, I'm like 50 hours into this current run, and as of yet, I have not gone out to Venus, I have not gone out to the Flotilla, I have not gone out to Mars. I have partook, I suppose, in zero of that content after 50, 60 hours of playing the game. So this is one of those sort of Factorio style games in terms of just like how long it's going to take you to get stuff set up. Like just building up my ship and getting ready for long range travel took upwards of a solid 50 hours, and I had a great time the entire time. That's the thing. At no point during that entire process was I bored, because I was constantly either... what's going on here? What's gone wrong? Hail this ship. There we go. I must have clicked the wrong menu or something. There we go. Open that on up, and then we'll try to dock up real fast. But at no point during that 50 hours was I ever bored, because if you can self-motivate with this game and you understand the things that you need next to get to the next tier of gameplay or the next tier of capability, it just gives you a non-stop set of kind of major and minor goals to fiddle with. You know, at the beginning of the game, you're deeply in debt. Like, my character has paid off his indentured servitude at this point, and I'm free. I have officially acquired the sock of space, and thus am allowed to do whatever the hell that I want. But at the beginning of the game, you're mostly going to be trying to keep your bills paid so that they don't lock you up in debtor's prison or whatever the hell happens to you when you don't pay what you owe. After that, you're going to be, oh, this one's a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay, kind of like a schmedium-sized ship right there. Let me throw my helmet on. My O2's looking okay, and my battery's looking okay on my EVA suit. Let's give this bad boy a walkthrough. We've got a bulkhead here that's blocking us off, and it's too damaged to be interacted with. So I'm just going to scrap it real fast, because inside my inventory, you will find that I have many different tools. I've got an angle grinder, I've got a drill, I've got a Weber lance, so this is kind of like an advanced tool right here that's very, very expensive that replaces like all the other tools in the game except for these two. But there we go. Oh, lovely. Okay, it's a flesh ship. It's not great. So this is one of the quests that exists inside the game. I will say nothing further. It's on you to investigate this and what it is. But if I can extract some value out of this ship before it gets taken over by the flesh, that would be good. But this stuff is going to expand, and it's going to slowly take over the ship. And so, do we have the stuff on board to repair this reactor? We do. I'm operating on a very, very tight time window right now because this is going to spread and take over the ship, and if it gets to our airlock, it'll take over our ship too. And in fact, we can take this back to the station with us, and then it will take over the station, and it will completely torpedo your playthrough if it ends up taking over our corner of the solar system. So it's real, real bad to let this stuff come into contact with your ship. However, I'm hoping... Oh, dude. We may not have time to actually harvest this guy out. It's spreading pretty rapidly, but there's so many high-value parts in here. Like, this reactor is worth like 20 grand, and so I'd like to get it out of here if I can. But it'll depend on what the flesh does while we're over here. Can I drag that MHD out real fast? So, pick up the MHD. Oh, I can't get there. Okay, we just need to get out of here. We're going to get trapped inside this ship because you can't really walk over this stuff. We need to get out of here. This is not a ship where we should be. I'm kind of toying with fate right now. I am going to check the storage area to make sure there's no pens on board, I think. I'm going to have to pry open some crates with my crowbar in order to do that. Oh, and there's another helium-3 over here. Uninstall it real fast. Let's see if we can get it off the ship. I need this super badly. I need one more... I need another liquid helium tank for what I'm trying to do inside the confines of the game right now. And if I can accomplish one thing on this ship before the meat takes over, I would prefer to grab this helium tank. All right, bring this helium tank over here, and we'll throw it right there. I'll install it in a little bit. How much helium does it have in it? None. This guy is completely and totally... Oh, no, it's got 1,500. Okay, it's got 1,500 kilograms. That's not bad. It'll hold 5,000, so I'm still going to have to pay to get it refilled, and it's going to cost an arm and a leg. Helium-3 is one of the most expensive things you can possibly buy in the game because it's for long-range travel. But this ship right here, I think it would be a pretty magnificent idea if we just get the hell out of here after we've got a rat corner right there. Okay, let me check for any meds or anything. Like, if we can find bone density meds, they tend to be inside ships like these. So if I can find it, that would be really, really good, but I don't know if we're going to find it. There's lots of clothing. There's lots of loot that you can pick up. Everything from, you know, decorative katanas to other random valuables you can find on these ships. But these look to mostly be clothing storage racks right now. If it closes off this gap right here, I'm not going to be able to get out. That's going to suck. I'm not going to enjoy that at all. Let's just leave. Okay, we're successfully away, so we don't have to worry about the meat taking over our ship. You can stop the meat from spreading by doing like a long, unguided sort of quest that doesn't even really let you know that you're on a quest. You just kind of have to like recognize, so you can actually talk to the meat too. I don't know if that's appealing to you, but the meat can have conversations with you if you wanted to talk to it. It is somewhat sentient. Or something. I don't know what qualifies as sentience, but, you know, like, in a way, it's kind of sentient. We're sitting at 85% RCS fuel right now. I figured I might as well package some tutorial into this video as well for how the torch drive works, because this entire panel over here takes a little bit. If you've never played the game before, there is an entire menu over here of user manuals that you can go through with, like, a 3-ring binder, and it will actually give you, like, the tech specs on how everything works, and unless you watch a streamer or a YouTuber do it, some of this stuff is pretty esoteric and hard to get a handle on, and so you're probably going to want to read through those at some point for like minor troubleshooting issues. I know that I had to when I was setting up my fusion reactor for the first time, because as one might expect, nuclear engineering is pretty complicated. Looks like we're closing in right here. We've got a decent speed. I should probably straighten out so that moving too fast. All right, let's hail the ship and get our docking protocols going real fast, and we'll see what's on this one. All right, take it back. That ship right there sucked. There's nothing left on it. Somebody's already picked through it, so there was no point recording footage over there. We'll try for this little derelict over here, and we'll see what it ends up having on board. All right, ship, may you be fortuitous. I'm praying to Salvage Yard Jeebus right now that you will be a good ship, a fortuitous ship, and a ship that is worthy of profit. Great profit, hopefully. Slow down our V-relational for just a second as we're cruising on into this thing. Don't want to tippity-tap it too much, but I think we're mostly in alignment right now. There we go. All right, what do you got going on? Looks like this one's actually a half of a ship from what I can see right here. So this one must have gotten blown in half by something. Unfortunate for the ship. Probably for the crew, too. Just sort of depends. Let's go on board and see what we've got here. So we've got storage bins around. Looks like we've got more storage bins on this side, like a little bathroom area. Hey, we've got Myura Hydras. Those are nice. So these are racing engine intakes right here. These are worth a fortune. Getting 5 or 6 of them together for my ship was very, I guess I have 4 now. I got rid of 2. I didn't need to carry that much weight and fuel. I determined that I had way too much weight and fuel on board. But these guys right here will bring you in a pretty solid profit, like 20K a piece if you bring the fuel with them. So those are nice to find. Cooler's kind of shredded. Is this one functional? They're both damaged, which is really kind of the unfortunate part. We're going to need to find scrap and fiber, carbon fiber, in order to make them work, but they're so valuable that they'll be worth tearing off even if they're broken so that we can repair them later. Inside here, it looks like we've got the leftovers of a fusion assembly. Okay, all horrifically damaged, further supporting the fact that I think this is like a piece of a ship that was maybe torn away, like over here. It seems like they took some pretty considerable damage because everything inside of here is just torched right now. But the fusion coils should bring in okay money. This guy right here, the reactor fuel regulator, is barely functional, but I think I can patch it up. We've also got a cryo tank over here. Okay. We've got a thruster over here that's still in okay shape. Let me tear all this stuff out of the ship, and then we'll talk about the new content, which is your fusion reactor. I'll show you how to light off your first fusion reactor, and then I'll show you how to light off your first torch drive expedition too, just so you're properly equipped, because those are some of the more complicated things in the game. But basically, I'm just going to uninstall all this stuff, and then I'll worry about repairing it later. Alright, so everything's all loaded up. Cargo bay's not looking quite as hefty as I was hoping it would be by the end of this video. Just goes to show, man, anytime you sit down to record anything, you're going to have the worst runs you've ever seen in your life. It's Murphy's Law in full effect. We got a whole bunch of ships that didn't really have a whole lot of interesting things going on, except for the one meat ship that we had to promptly run away from because it was completely overtaken. Let's go back to the station, and I will get all this stuff sold so that I can show you how that works, and we can kind of talk about the station for a second. Kind of beginning my deceleration as I move towards K-Leg right now. Once we get inside, there's all kinds of services and things that they've added to the game since the last time I showed it to you, and so I did want to briefly talk about those and the various wings that they've updated. Oh my god, I'm going way too fast right now for how close I am. Let's decelerate for a second. There we go, much better. I feel much safer at this speed, even if it takes a little bit longer. I am not a bold flyer in this game. I like to take things nice and slow and steady. Moving fast and moving rushed has never worked out for me. We'll continue our deceleration while we request docking over here. Alright, request docking service. Good stuff. We're still moving on in. Let's accelerate time for a second to get a little bit closer. A little bit more wiggle room. We'll get down to safe attachment velocity, which is like 90 meters per second. That to me feels very, very fast for docking clamps to like connect without taking any damage, but the game says that it's safe, so like I've trusted it for the last few years. So K-Leg, this is actually one of the main characters of the game, the station itself. Inside the station, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. Each one of these characters, you can talk to them, you can make friends with them, you can invite them to be crew on your ship. The conversational system in this game is kind of weird. Just like, I mean, everything in Neo Scavenger was kind of weird too. This is by the same company that made Neo Scavenger. But the most important stuff is we've got the licensed trade kiosk. If you are a licensed salvager in good standing, you can sell your stuff over here, and they pay very, very good money for all of the things that you found on ships. And so what I can do is I can go in and we can just sell off all of the stuff that we just took off that other ship or that grouping of ships, and they'll take just about everything. They're not super upset with what you bring to them. Oh, I got one repaired RCS intake ready to go. I need that liquid helium, so like I can't sell that. All right, big guy, let's get you installed. Have you go right there. Oh, it's in the way of itself right now. Okay. Well then fine, I'm gonna grab you right there, and then we'll drag you back, and then we will install right there. Perfect, and now we've got our third helium tank. In general, you need like 3 to 4 helium tanks per deuterium tank, because the way that the nuclear fusion reactor works is that it converts the deuterium and the helium into these pellets that get fed on into a fusion reactor, and so it's a mix, but it's like a 4-to-1 mix, so like a 1-to-1 tank spread is not going to do it for you. I'm going to maneuver us out to the edge of the wake zone real fast, and I'll show you how the torch drive works. I'll show you how to boot up your reactor for the first time, and hopefully that'll be like good enough to get people interested. But here on K-Leg, basically there's a whole bunch of different areas you can go to. There's bathroom facilities, there's a licensed sale kiosk right there. I am a licensed salvager, although it's very, very expensive to be a licensed salvager. There's a scrap desk. They have specific requests every day for things that they want you to bring back, but you don't need a license to sell there. Supplies and all of these kiosks down here are going to be for food, water, essentials, tools, things like that that allow you to go out into the galaxy. There's a gig terminal over here. There are little procedurally generated jobs that you can do for people. More complex or more simple, depending on what you want to do. Everything from package deliveries to like seduction and espionage, all kinds of things that you can do over there. I don't really mess with it too much because the missions are kind of weird in this game. Once you get to the more complex ones, yeah, 40 grand, almost our entire profit from that last one to fill up that helium tank, but it'll be worth it. From there, there's also this right here, which takes you to the subway that connects different wings of the station. There's a commercial district that has more specialized shops, depending on whether you want to buy furniture or clothing. One of them will take you to an apartment block. You can now have an apartment here on the station, and you can decorate the apartment however you see fit and use it as kind of like a home away from home. There's an embassy now where you can get citizenships with the different sovereignties that exist inside the solar system. All kinds of fun stuff to play around with that I've barely grazed the edge of because after 50 hours, I'm still kind of in like the early middle period of this game. But I'm going to maneuver us up outside of the wake zone, and I will show you how the fusion drive works. Let's go do that. That guy's getting caught by the cops right there. He must be illegally salvaging. You can see that little yellow guy right there. The red ones are the cops, and they come around to check your salvage license from time to time. Sometimes they come around just to shake you down. It kind of depends. I don't know, dude. Who knows what motivates the space cops? Sometimes they actually want to see my license. Sometimes they take my license, throw it on the ground, and they're like, yeah, I still think you're illegal. What are you going to do to make that go away? And I'm like, money? You want me to bribe you? I'll bribe you. You want me to bribe you? I'll bribe you. So as we cruise towards the edge of the wake zone out here, there it is. You can see these little red lines right here. You're not allowed to light off a torch drive inside this area because it lights off like a mini nuclear explosion that can be very damaging to other people's vessels. Let's take our V relational down to like, that'll do it. Okay, so let's hop inside of our ship and let's check out the new mechanic with the fusion reactor. I'm going to power it down and then power it back up. So you guys can see what that process looks like. Fair warning, everything in this game has a control panel, from the CO2 scrubbers to like, this game is very, very immersive. So like, were I to go to the CO2 scrubber down here, which my character is doing to inspect the control panel, it does have a control panel. everything in this game has a control panel, and you're going to have to learn how to read all these. And then from there, you can also take the bezels off of them, and then you can attach them to different sensors manually, just depending on how you want to drain like carbon out of your ship or whatever else. But let's go back over here, and I'm going to do a full reactor core shutdown so that I can show you what a reactor startup looks like, so that you're not completely lost, and maybe you've got like a heading and don't have to read the manual. So this is the control bus right here for our reactor. You are going to have to know what every single button does and what every single slider does on here in at least a basic way. But for right now, we're going to turn off the reactor like so. Reactor is now officially down. Everything is going to reset back to its basic function. Now, when you're starting up a nuclear reactor, this switch is where you want to start, and you're following the steps on this left-hand side. So we need to turn on our power bus, but you'll notice there's two settings. Which one do we set it to? You set it to battery, like so. And then it's going to do a flash test because the reactor needs to trickle charge off of your batteries before it has enough to fire itself, basically. The second step is the core purge. It's probably the most important step. If you look up here in the top right, on this side, you'll see this right here that has vacuum, rough, and danger. This is how much fuel is left in the line. You need to drain this out so that it becomes a vacuum before you light off the reactor. Otherwise, you will nuclear explosion yourself and everyone else around you. And generally, that ends up being both fatal and making people think poor thoughts about you because you blew up half a space station. So what we need to do is we go to the core purge over here, and we're going to put it on rough. And what you'll notice is it's going to start draining the fuel out of the line. You can put it on turbo mode if you want to. The applications for turbo mode are when something has gone seriously wrong with your reactor and it's redlining and you need to drain it out like right this second. But for now, doing it slowly is perfectly fine. If you look at this line right here, this is how much that the reactor is trickle charged off of our batteries. It's ready to go, and it's ready for firing, so that's good. Core purge is officially done, and we're reading vacuum right here, so we can turn off the core purge. The las caps, they're going to calibrate themselves all by themselves, and then the laser alignment, because the pellets that we feed into this thing are detonated via lasers. We're going to turn those on, and they're going to calibrate. We also need to turn on the pellet feeders. The pellet feeders, you'll hear them in the background. They take a second, so if this doesn't instantly turn green, don't panic about it. It takes them a while. It's kind of like your printer clearing its own heads. It takes them a second for the pellet feeders to make sure that there's no debris inside of the line. They're basically checking all throughout themselves to make sure there's not going to be a feed error, because that would be super, super bad with a piece of equipment that's as complicated as this guy. Next up, we got to turn on the cryo. There it is. Cryo should be online, and you'll notice the core temperature is now going down. The cryo is what stops our reaction from escaping the vacuum chamber and burning down our whole ship, so we want that to be working too. That's very important stuff. We've got the fuel regulator. It's right there. We'll turn it on. All good to go. We also need to turn on our field coils, so both field coils are now online. The MHD is basically the alternator that exists inside of your fusion reactor. It's what takes the fusion reaction and converts it into healthy, safe electricity that can then be fed to your batteries after you light the thing off. And so you can probably guess, oops, it's converting our electricity right now. All that's left is to ignite it. And there you go. We're alive. No nuclear explosion, and everything's looking good. At this point, a very important step is that you're going to want to take this, the power bus, from battery to charge, because this guy right here, turn that back on. We need to, well, maybe not. It'll be okay. I saw it accelerating aggressively on the core pressure, but we're all good. Swap this over from battery to charge, though, because you want this to be taking electricity when you're starting it up, but when it's fully started up, you want it to be charging your batteries. That way you never have to go back to station if you can help it. And then from there, it's going to tell you how much deuterium and how much helium-3 you have inside the tanks, how much you're burning per day to maintain this reaction. We're only burning like 4 per day. And we have like 20,000 and 50,000, so it'll be perfectly fine. You may notice that the core pressure up here went back up into yellow and towards danger. That's fine. This is operating inside of its parameters. Remember, we wanted to drain the fuel out of the line so that we could ignite it, but this is simply now indicating that there is fuel in the line and that it's moving exactly how it's supposed to. So this reactor is now ready to roll. Let's go ahead, but if we go back out here, you'll notice that our batteries are now charging off of our nuclear reactor. And we can now use the nuclear reactor to use its exhaust. The excess thrust that comes out of this thing, we can actually redirect it into our thrusters, which allows us to engage in long-range travel, which is kind of like the newest, latest, greatest thing for this game that they've been playing with for the last year and working all the kinks out. And that comes with its own complications. So if you wanted to light off your first long-distance flight, you can manually adjust the torch drive if you want. I can give you a rough idea of what that's supposed to look like. So the cycle is how much thrust you're putting out. The more cycle you have, your core temperature is going to change. And so you need to adjust the flow of your fuel over here to make sure that it stays inside the parameter that you want. Otherwise, it'll overheat, melt down, and explode, or it'll get too cold, and then it'll just shut down mid-flight, which will be really, really inconvenient. But the developers have given you an autopilot over here that you can actually engage that will handle all the complexities for you. And so we need to open up this cap right here as soon as the autosave is over. And we need to turn that on. We now have our reactor online and our thrust is active. It's not fired yet, but it will be. And let's say that we wanted to go all the way to Venus, since that's like the trip that everybody wants to take in this game. You can see Venus right here. And so Venus orbital is that little point on that side. And then what we would do is you got to pause the game to do this. You would put plot course, and then you would click on one of these bad boys. With our course plotted right here, I'm going to show you some of the adjustments that you can make too. You are going to have to align your ship. I do wish that there was an easier way to zoom in and zoom out in this game other than the middle mouse. But with your course plotting right here, there's a couple things you want to pay attention to, and they're all going to adjust these stats on the right, which is going to help you figure out whether or not you have enough fuel to make this jump. And so basically, drift phase right here, that's how long your ship is calculating it's going to drift without using fuel. So if I raise this up, for example, what you'll see is that the course will get shorter. I've already plotted in the course, but what would happen is it would take us a lot less time to get to Venus if I had no drift phase. That means I'm accelerating the entire time that we're going towards Venus. We are hard burn. However, that would be very, very hard on our reactants. So like right here with it where it was at, we were at 16 right here. And what you'll see is we only have 26 hours worth of reactant. Now, we are hard burning towards Venus right now. I've got the safety on, which means that we can only accelerate at 2 Gs, which is fine for human beings. But if you override the safety, you can actually accelerate it much higher than 2 Gs. So you can do that by either getting rid of your feeble and your brittle, which I showed you earlier. That's why I'm working on those stats and getting rid of them. Or you can take a gravacine pen, which is why I was so excited about finding gravacine on that first ship that we scavenged, because gravacine will make it so that you can take like an extra G, which means that I can accelerate at like 3 Gs instead of 2 Gs, which doesn't sound like much, but in fact, accelerating at 3 Gs will likely lower the duration of our trip up here that you're seeing at 100 hours. So 4 days is how long it's going to take us to get to Venus, and yes, you do have to actually live on your ship during that time in this game. Long-range travel is very, very, very long and cumbersome in this game. But if we can cut that down even to like 72 hours, that would be a really, really big deal. And so that's where the override comes in, is that you can inject yourself with a grav pen, and then you can crank this bad boy up to like 3 Gs worth of acceleration, and it would cut this time down fairly aggressively. And so there you go. You might notice that you hear the sound of a burning engine right now. That's because we are flying at the moment. You've got to kind of like zoom down to scale to see it, but our ship right now is traveling at like 14 kilometers per second. That's pretty damn fast. Like, we're cruising right now. We're moving real quick, and we're accelerating at a rate of 11 kilometers per second. And so like, if I speed up the time phrase right here, you'll see that we're following along this orbital path. And from here on out, we can basically just close this down and let the ship autopilot, and then we'll just be living on our ship for like the next 4 days, which is why the food was so important that we picked up, and it's why I've got water tanks and all kinds of stuff out here. We are going to want to be careful. Bad things can happen while you're flying through space. Things like people intercepting you, micrometeorites and stuff like that can knock holes in the walls, and so the trip is not likely to be very safe. But that's kind of the thing that the game's playing around with right now. There are other systems and there are other things to play around with out there in space that did not exist before. And so I'm kind of like at the end of the tier 1 content right now, and I'm moving my way towards the tier 2 content. But oh yeah, dude, we're picking up speed right now. Hell yeah. Yup, we're moving quick. I'm gonna hit myself with a grav pen real fast too, and then replot my course and see how fast I can actually go. Alright, grav pen has been officially injected. Let me check my status over here. Used gravicine. Good. Let's replot the course and see if we can go a little bit faster with the safety off. So override the safety. We're going to pause the game up real fast. I got to get back out to scale, and I want to see how short I can get this trip down to. Even if it costs me 3 or 4 grav pens, I want to see how fast I can get to Venus, dude. We're trying to make this run like the Kessel run, bro. We're trying to, like, make this thing quick, snappy. Okay, course is engaged. We're accelerating at 2.8 Gs now, instead of how we did it before. It doesn't look like we're having any negative effects. I don't see it popping up with any moodles saying that I'm being crushed by gravity. Let's take this up a little higher. And it looks like we are cruising along our chosen path. And we're moving pretty fast right now, too, just in relation to that point right there. We're moving pretty quick, like we've got 1,000, so we're moving about 30 or 40 kilometers per second. If I can eke this up, that would be good too. I've got it down to 52 hours right now if we pull 3 Gs the entire way. With training, I could probably get that number up to 4 Gs. Like once I get rid of my feeble, my frail, and with a grav pen, we could probably take it up to 4 Gs, which would get us there in 2 days, which is a solidly fast Venus run with the reactant that we have on board. But this is Ostranauts, dude. I think this game is absolutely incredible. Oh, nope. I got knocked over. What did I get knocked over by? Stand back up there, buddy. Okay, we're back up on our feet. I got knocked down by something. We probably hit like a piece of debris or something like that. And because this is low sci-fi, like there's no shields or anything to protect you. But the game is really, really good right now. You get a solid 100 hours out of this game if you're self-motivated and you like building out ships and you like making trade runs. They now have cargo pods that you can attach to the outside of the ship. I've found 2 or 3 cargo haulers that I've stripped and sold the cargo pods off of. And there's missions now that want you to take cargo pods from one planet to another that you can get paid for. There's little storylines and things inside of the game. They just added in a whole bunch of new mechanics having to do with intimacy between characters. And then next patch they've already teased is going to be the combat patch, where you're going to be able to put torpedo tubes and you're going to be able to put like particle accelerators or like magnetic guns on your ships that you can use to fire on other ships and actually get into space battles. And so Ostranauts, man, of all the games that exist on Steam, this is the one that I'm the most excited about what 1.0 is going to look like. Probably won't be here for a while. The game is currently in 0.15 after years of development. And at 0.15, it's probably got a solid 50 to 100 hours of gameplay in it before you'll start to feel like things are getting boring, at least if you like the core gameplay loop. And then from there, dude, that's a long ways to go till 1.0, but this is already a game that you can sink mammoth amounts of hours into. And so I'm very, very excited about where this game is going. I think other people are too, because this game and their developers got signed to be published by the publication that's owned by Dwarf Fortress, which means that the Dwarf Fortress guys are aware of this game and really, really like what they're showing off. And like, you'd be hard pressed to find a heavier hitting group of indie developers than the guys that made Dwarf Fortress. Just, you know, guys out there making weird, fantastical stuff that has stood the test of time. And so very excited about Ostranauts. I don't know if this video was entertaining or not, but I figured it was time to check back in on it and show you how the game functions and what's enjoyable about it. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so that you don't have to. Today on the chopping block, Ostranauts. Tomorrow, something else. Thanks for hanging out with me, and that's about all I got for you, folks. Bye.